All right, last mic check. Final mic check. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Final mic check. Everyone good? Great.
I'm the District Attorney for Sacramento County. This is an opportunity for us to give you all an update on the downtown shooting that happened in the early morning hours of April 3rd. I have this one on, so is that working, you guys? Okay. I'm going to talk loud then. Good afternoon. This is our opportunity to give you an update from the law enforcement perspective, as well as our office, on the shooting that occurred in downtown Sacramento on the early morning hours of April 3rd of this year. And so with that, I will first introduce the Chief of Police, Kathy Lester, to give you her update.
How about now? There we go. All right, let's start over. Well, I just want to say thank you to the District Attorney and good afternoon. We are here today to talk about the status of the K Street shooting and to provide an update to the public about the course of the investigation and what we know today. Let me first start by saying that my heart reaches out to the victims of this shooting, as well as our community that I know have been greatly impacted by this tragic event. This act of violence devastated families and has made members of our community concerned for their safety. And as I said the day this happened, we are resolved to find those responsible and to secure justice for those victimized in the early hours of April 3rd. As we transition from the investigation to the prosecution of these crimes, I would like to recognize that we are able to now talk about the prosecution of this case because of the extremely hard work done by members of our department and the dedication of our community. At the time of the initial incident, at least 40 of the 49 on-duty Sacramento Police Department officers in our city responded to this call. We were joined by the California Highway Patrol, multiple outside agencies, and many medic units of the Sacramento Fire Department. All of these agencies rendered life-saving measures and tried to save lives. Once the scene was stabilized, our department committed a great deal of resources to begin the investigation into what occurred. Our crime scene investigators spent over 24 hours meticulously documenting and collecting a massive amount of evidence at the scene. More than 40 detectives have been involved in the investigation of this case, including 12 detectives that have been assigned to this full-time. I am equally grateful to the many members of the public who have come forward to help our department identify those responsible for this crime by submitting over 200 tips, videos, and photos. This level of cooperation speaks to the character of those who came forward. It validates our work to earn the trust and the cooperation of our community as well. We are gratified by this, and it deepens our resolve to earn that trust every day on every call for service and in every contact with our community. I'd also like to thank the outside agencies, including the FBI, ATF, the Sacramento County Crime Lab, and the Sacramento Sheriff's Office, who offered and continue to provide resources, personnel, and technical capabilities. What we now know is that this was clearly gang-related. There was a gunfight between multiple gang rivals. Ultimately, this incident left 6 dead and 12 people injured. More than 100 casings were found on scene from handguns of 2 different calibers. We also know that there were at least 5 shooters and that one of them used a stolen handgun with full auto capabilities and a high-capacity magazine. While we have made several arrests in this case, we know there is still more work to do, including locating and arresting Mr. Mtula Payton. We have currently a team of detectives doing everything they can do to locate Mr. Payton. During the course of this investigation, we have been in constant contact with the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. Through this partnership and through the work I have described, we have been able to bring forward facts and evidence and ultimately submit a case for review by prosecutors. I want to repeat something I've said throughout the past month since this shooting occurred. This event was shocking to Sacramento, but it was also a very visible and public demonstration of what too many families in our city know every day. Gang and gun violence are rare on this scale and rare on downtown streets, but violence is far too common in many of our neighborhoods. Families who face this reality daily are desperate for help. Everyone deserves to live in peace and safety, no matter what neighborhood you live in. We know that a small number of criminals can inflict huge suffering, including repeat offenders, gang members, and people willing to resort to violence to resolve differences. Guns and gangs are fully entrenched in this. Addressing urban violence needs to be a community effort and requires partnerships at every level. I know that none of us can create public safety alone, not the police department, not the city, and not even the best-intentioned community-based organizations. We all have to work on reducing violent crime together. As your police department, we are confronting this and stepping forward to do our part by working with our law enforcement partners to keep repeat offenders off the streets, by supporting and partnering with our community-based organizations that are on the ground in our neighborhoods and who are working with us to keep neighborhoods safer, and also to connect anyone willing to get help to the resources that they need. Finally, we are using data and studying all available information to identify those responsible for violence so that we can direct resources and be more effective. The bottom line is that everyone deserves to be safe, and we are determined to stand with those who are working to make this reality. At this time, I'm going to ask the district attorney to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I want to just echo the comments of the Chief about the extraordinary work that was put into this investigation that still continues to this day. There's no question that SAC PD was on that scene within a matter of minutes. SAC Fire and all of the allied agencies that did extraordinary work to make the scene safer, to deal with those that had been shot. It was a very complex scene. This is a very complex set of facts. What I say to you today will be things that are already a matter of public record, and some things I'm about to tell you in terms of where we sit today with the prosecution. There is no question that this shooting presents a complex set of facts. 6 people were killed, 12 additional people were shot. There were at least 70 to 80 people in the vicinity of this shooting. The crime scene, as the Chief indicated, covered significant area of downtown Sacramento. There was extensive forensic evidence collection, and there will continue to be extensive forensic evidence examinations. There were over 100 shell casings recovered from this scene. There have been countless witnesses that have been interviewed by law enforcement. Some are cooperative and some are not. I will say this, that because of the factual and legal complexities, the decision of what I'm about to talk about today has taken time. It will still continue to take time. And I will say this to be very clear. What I'm about to tell you now is where we sit today with the facts and the law as we know it today. There continues to be an extensive investigation, and the evaluation of that investigation, along with the law, will take place at that time. This afternoon, across the street at the courthouse, a complaint was filed and arrest warrants were issued for 3 individuals. Those individuals are, what happened to this? Sorry. Make sure I got it good. The charges today that have been filed in arrest warrants issued, a judge signed those arrest warrants, involve Smiley Martin, Dandrae Martin, and Mtula Payton. What I want to do is go through what those charges are as to each of those individuals and then address some particular questions. As to Smiley Martin, the charges are, he is charged with the murder of Johntaya Alexander. He is also alleged that an enhancement, what he used, a use of a 9mm fully automatic causing death. Count 2, Mr. Martin is charged with the murder of Melinda Davis. Additionally, an enhancement has been alleged that he used a 9mm fully automatic gun causing her death. Count 3, the murder of Yamile Martinez. Again, an enhancement for using a 9mm fully automatic causing her death. In addition, Mr. Smiley Martin is charged with being a convicted felon in possession of a 9mm fully automatic handgun. Those prior felony convictions, which we must prove to be able to charge that case, include January 2013 conviction for being a prohibited person in possession of a firearm, May of 2014 conviction for a robbery, January of 2018 a conviction for felony domestic violence, same year, same docket, conviction for a felony, what we call a 245, which is a assault by means of force likely to produce great bodily injury. In count 6, Mr. Smiley Martin is charged with unlawful possession of a machine gun. That is that 9mm fully automatic handgun. As to all charges related to Mr. Smiley Martin, there is what we call a prior strike. It's an enhancement to all of those charges, which is the conviction for the 2014 robbery. As to Dandrae Martin, he too is charged with 3 counts of murder. First count involves Johntaya Alexander as the victim. He has an enhancement that he is charged with using a 9mm handgun causing her death. Count 2, as to Mr. Dandrae Martin, the murder of Melinda Davis. Same enhancement, 9mm handgun causing death. Count 3, the murder of Yamile Martinez, again with an enhancement of a 9mm causing death. As to Mr. Martin, he is also charged with being a convicted felon in possession of a 9mm handgun. Those prior felony convictions, or that prior felony conviction, is out of Arizona in January 2017 for essentially the equivalent of felony domestic violence. As to Mr. Mtula Payton, he too is charged with 3 counts of murder. The murder of Johntaya Alexander. His enhancement is the use of a 9mm handgun causing death. Count 2, the murder of Melinda Davis, with the enhancement of the use of a 9mm handgun causing death. Count 3, the murder of Yamile Martinez, with the enhancement of using a 9mm causing death. Mr. Payton is also charged with being a convicted felon in possession of a 9mm handgun. His prior felony convictions include a 2014 conviction for being a prohibited person in possession of a firearm. In 2015, a felony conviction for being a felon in possession of a firearm. In 2017, he's been convicted of a 245A1, which is assault with a deadly weapon. 2020, another felon in possession of a firearm conviction. And as to Mr. Mtula, his crimes, he has an enhancement, what we call an out on bail, meaning at the time of these alleged acts on April 3rd of 2020, he was out on bail on another case, and that was a case involving another allegation of felon in possession of a firearm. And in fact, at the time of that case that was pending, he was a co-defendant with Devazia Turner. As to all charges related to Mr. Payton, he has what we call a prior strike allegation. The 2017 assault with a deadly weapon is a felony strike under California law. In addition to all of those charges, all three of these defendants, as it relates to the shooting downtown, have allegations of special circumstances for multiple murders, which means that they are eligible for capital punishment. And just to answer any questions, that decision has not been made, nor will it be made, as to what type of penalty we seek, and that will be made down the road. In addition to those charges related to the downtown shooting, today additional charges were filed against Mtula Payton in a separate docket alleging 3 counts of EDD fraud, totaling the amount of approximately $45,000, occurring between July of 2020, while he was incarcerated in state prison, and August of 2020 as well. As to all of those counts, in terms of the EDD fraud, he also is alleged to have that prior strike of the 2017 assault with a deadly weapon. Those are the charges today. I say this again, that is where we sit today with the evidence in the law. One question that may be posed is, why are Sergio Harris, Devazia Turner, and Joshua Hoy not charged as victims of the murder, as murder victims? As the chief said in her comments, and has been stated already in other public documents, this was a gun battle between 2 rival gangs. The evidence shows that the rival gang members armed themselves with weapons. The evidence shows and will show that these individuals armed themselves with guns. While our law of homicide has changed significantly over the last few years in terms of how we hold people accountable, one law that has, or I should say theory of what we call liability, is well settled in California law. And that law essentially says that when individuals are involved in a gun battle and they kill innocent bystanders, all participants in that gun battle are responsible for the death of those innocent bystanders. It doesn't matter whose bullet killed who. What matters is that this was a gun battle between rival gang members who came armed to this scene in downtown Sacramento, and innocent bystanders died. All participants in this incident, the surviving ones, the Martin brothers and Mtula Payton, are charged with all of the deaths of those innocent bystanders. That is what we have today. Those are the charges. The investigation continues, and that's where we sit today with the charges against these 3 individuals. And with that, I'll invite Mr. Norgard up, who's our chief deputy. Let me actually, come on up, Rod, but there's 2 other things that may be asked. Why no gang enhancements? That's a common area. I will say this, the law has changed, and we cannot file gang enhancements in this case, despite the fact of what the chief said is that this was gang related. Why no charges for the 12 other people that were shot? This is an ongoing investigation. That is a significant amount of work that requires forensic evidence analysis, ballistics, more interviews, hundreds of hours that have been reviewed by law enforcement in terms of videos. So, as I said, those decisions will be made accordingly when all of that investigation is complete, and we reconnect with the police department on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Norgard if he has. He's the moderator here.
We're going to take a limited number of questions here, but before we do, I want to make sure we have understanding. The questions have to be limited to this case, all right? The police department, once charges are filed, a criminal complaint is filed, the law enforcement agency, the Sacramento Police Department, will defer all questions to the DA's office, and that's a standard practice, and we're going to honor that unless there's truly a question about law enforcement's response. Finally, our ethical obligation as prosecutors prevent us from discussing facts outside the record. The facts that you heard have either been in prior Sacramento press releases or in a bail motion filed in Smiley Martin's case in which these facts were set forth. With that in mind, go ahead.
Hi, Kathleen Renee with the Associated Press. So the district attorney was mentioning law at the end that says anyone who participates in a gunfight is responsible for any of the deaths. I was wondering what exactly, like what statute of California law that is, and if that statute also holds. I'm confused why they were not also charged with the deaths of the 3 men who allegedly participated. Can you just be clear about the law there?
Yeah, there's a famous case in California. It's called People versus Sanchez. These are the lawyer things that nobody likes, okay? People versus Sanchez, okay? These are the lawyer little nuances.
But they're important, I think,
Okay.
for us to explain this.
When a gun battle occurs, the innocent bystanders who are killed, all the parties responsible for the shooting are part and participle of that gun battle, can be held accountable for those innocent bystander deaths, all right? So that's what we have charged as of today. Now, the investigation is continuing. That could always change as this evidence develops, but that's the state of the law.
But is that also to say that people who participate in the shooting do not count as, like, why was no one charged with the murder of Sergio Harris? Is that because you're alleging that he was a participant and therefore he cannot be counted as a victim?
We don't make allegations as to people who are deceased, okay? That's the loss of life, and our hearts and our thoughts go out to that family. That's a big deal for us. But under the state of the law, that's what we can currently charge, that the individuals who were innocent bystanders can be alleged as victims.
Okay, so someone who participates cannot be alleged as a victim.
Unless the evidence develops in a certain way that changes to the murder statute in California that occurred over the last few years, make that extremely difficult to do.
Okay, thank you.
I
Yes.
want to ask, to be clear, so just to be crystal clear, the facts of your investigation so far show that these 3 men were in fact participants in the gunfight.
Well, we don't, as DAs, we don't view the world that way, okay? We have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that people were not involved. And so we can prove as to the victims that we allege that they were not involved. The evidence may clarify itself over time, but that's where it stands today.
And can you specify whether any of those individuals were armed?
I think we're not going to try the case in the court of public media.
Right.
As it plays out, the facts will show themselves, and that question will probably be answered in relatively short order. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you clarify the comments made about potentially seeking capital punishment in these cases, and also the comments made about capital punishment in the situation, and then also Mtula Payton being out on bail and the EDD fraud? Can you elaborate any more on what he was out on bail for, when this was, what the situation was, how you found out about the EDD fraud?
Well, let's start with EDD fraud. I don't even need this, I guess. It's no secret that our office has been very proactive about trying to determine if people engage in EDD fraud. So that became an investigation. So that's where that came from. In terms of capital punishment, anytime we charge a murder case and we allege special circumstances, a decision has to be made on how do we proceed. Is it going to be an LWOP, life without parole? Is it a capital case where we're seeking the death penalty? Those decisions are not made anytime now or in the immediate future. Those are things that we have a process for, and that we'll go through that process. If that makes sense.
And then Mtula Payton being on bail, can you talk more about what he was on bail for and when he was released on bail and where?
Sorry. Mr. Payton was pending charges at the time of this shooting. He was a co-defendant with Devazia Turner on a 29-800, which is a felon in possession of a firearm case. So at that time, he was out on bail, I believe, $50,000 bail, if I'm correct. I'm not sure if our folks are there. I'm pretty sure it was $50,000.
And what year was this?
It's pending now.
pending
I
now,
think
okay.
it's is it 2021?
Okay.
I think it's 2021.
Okay, thank you.
And can you describe the efforts in trying to bring Mr. Payton to justice? Obviously, him being outstanding is of great concern to the community.
what efforts are being made to bring him in?
We have a team of detectives that is currently using all resources available to them, but I would ask if any members of the public have any information about his whereabouts, to please contact the police department or contact Crime Stoppers.
Yes, ma'am.
One more, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm not normally a courts reporter, so I'm still confused. So if there were to be a situation, if there were no innocent bystanders in this case, and some shooters died and some shooters didn't, would no one be charged with murder? It sounds like what you're saying is that if it's a gang situation and both parties are participating, then if someone dies, no one is charged for their death.
I couldn't say that. What I will tell you is, if you change the facts, then our answer would probably change, but we don't give out hypothetical opinions. We have to base our decision on the facts that we have in this case. At this time, these are the people we can charge with murder for these victims who have passed away as a result of this shooting. This may change as the evidence develops, okay? But as the DA said, the state of the law changed drastically, the homicide statute, in the last few years. That makes this job more difficult.
Which prop is that? Which specific changes are you talking about?
That would be SB 1437.
Thank you.
Okay. I think, do we have any questions? Okay. Okay, we have no further questions, so we're going to end it right now. Thank you all for showing up.